Welcome to Southern California.
Observation from the edge.
Observations from the edge. Observations from the edge. Observations from the edge.
Observation from the edge.
Observations from the edge. Woohoo! Let there be light. So this, folks, is the creek. Digging it, loving it. All the way through the city of Escondido is this cement culvert. Now, a lot of people in Escondido don't know that Escondido Creek is actually a cement culvert. People that have lived here, that have moved here in the last 20 years would never know that this was once upon a time a creek with birds and trees and fish and all that kind of biotic life that we no longer actually need, eh? I'm here with Jerry Harmon. One of the quintessential environmental thinkers here in San Diego's North County. We want to talk to him a little bit about his stomping grounds, which is Escondido. We're standing here, as you figured, we're at the Escondido Creek. And so, Jerry, behind us is this huge cement culvert thing. Why is this such a huge culvert?
Where we're standing, Robert, is where the channelized portion of Escondido Creek gets to come back to its natural state. And so the trees that you see in the background are the way it used to be. We have a history in Escondido of a floodplain. And people in the 50s decided that if they could get money from the federal government to, quote, solve flooding problems, that would be the right thing to do. Obviously, in this day and age, we would have taken a totally different approach. Instead of using concrete and building a channel to contain water, we would have designed the creek to fit in with the terrain. But in those days, the idea was, let's go to Washington, D.C., let's see how much money we can get in order to solve a flooding problem. And so thus Escondido Creek became basically a channel of concrete 8 miles from one end of the city to the other. And so there is no natural creek within the city of Escondido.
We're on top of the box culvert. We can see that the creek's behind me in like a 3-sided culvert. And as we turn the camera around, I want you to look that on each side of the asphalt, you can see where the creek as it goes right underneath Makucha's restaurant. So we'll turn around. So see, look at the ground. Look at the ground right here. You can actually see the cement top of the culvert as it heads right at Makucha's. How much sense does it make to place a sewage treatment facility right next to a creek?
Well, you know, I'm not sure why that location was chosen originally, because I was not on the council at the time. This was back in the 50s. But the obvious need is that sewerage flows like water does, downhill in accordance with gravity. And so it was logical, I suspect, that they would locate that facility where it would be at the low point in order to optimize the drainage for the residents and the businesses in terms of sewerage in Escondido. And then they still had to do something with the affluent once it had been treated. And even though it's been treated for years, over 25 years, to secondary treatment standards, there still has to be something done with that affluent after it's treated. And so there is a 30-inch diameter pipe that follows a right-of-way parallel to the creek all the way to the ocean and then a mile plus out into the ocean. So I suspect that the location was basically chosen as a way of minimizing expense and maximizing the use of gravity to move sewage water.
Notice how sterile all this looks, how it's all been cleared away. The city of Escondido did this without doing environmental impact reports. The reason? To shore up their sewer line, which is beneath this riprap. What they did is they go in here, they clear it all out, they shore up the sewage pipe, and then they replant the natives. They're saying that, ooh, this is the mitigation they're doing by replanting the natives. This is one of the little natives that have been replanted here as they try to reestablish the native habitat that was actually wiped away to make room for the sewer project. As you see, we have an irrigation pipe that's here to help reestablish these plants. The tragedy is that it actually helps reestablish the invasive arundo, which is just a toxic invader, for lack of a better term. There used to be oaks on this site. There used to be oaks right where we were speaking, but they had to clear the oaks away so they could get their trucks in to do the heavy work. This is Escondido and their commitment to the environment. Look, I've been having an issue in regards to sewer lines being placed near or underneath creeks. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's unfortunate. The engineering behind it is pretty obvious. The sewage flows downhill, and so do creeks. So it's an easy alignment for the pipes. So historically, that's how it was done. I think going forward, with what we know about creeks now and their value to wildlife areas and human peace of mind, for that matter, there must be other ways to align them such that they don't need to be in creek bottoms. The environmental disturbance of trenching and rerouting creeks and plating in pipes is pretty severe. In fact, a lot of the damage to Escondido Creek happened when the outfall was put in. But the outfall itself was an improvement over dumping sewage directly into the creek, which is what they did before. So it's incrementally getting better, but it's still a bit of a problem.
Where do you see us going in regards to, you said that environmental consciousness? What is the prediction? What is your prediction for the next 10 years here in coastal North County watershed areas?
I'm an optimist on that point. I think that the environmental awareness in North County and on the planet in general seems to be on the rise. And for Escondido Creek in particular, by working with the water districts, we now have about a 200-acre conservation easement on the creek that allows for restoration. And we're already getting calls from agencies who need to do off-site mitigation, looking for areas where they can do restoration. So I'm hoping in the next 10 years that the restoration we're seeing along this stretch of creek can continue downstream all the way to the lagoon and at San Alejo in the ocean. And the restoration we see now is further evidence that the curing process is happening, or the healing process, but it needs to go a little bit further.
Where are we now in terms of commitment from elected officials to really take seriously the role creeks play?
It varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I would say the city of Escondido today is maybe down a little bit in its commitment to the creek compared to a few years ago, for example, when Jerry Harmon was on the city council there, whereas the county, we're in county jurisdiction now, is, I believe, on an uptick for Escondido Creek. The recently re-elected supervisor, Pam Slater, has exhibited a good amount of commitment to the Escondido Creek area and the environment in general as far as politicians go. So it's always a mixed bag. The city councils change every few years, and it can go from Escondido being the good guys to Escondido on down, and now San Marcos is good, or Encinitas. It really kind of jumps around. The environmental consciousness isn't a continuous event in the politics of this region. It really shifts from year to year.
This is what we want every creek in North County to look like. Okay, I'm here at the San Alejo Lagoon with Doug Gibson, the executive director of the San Alejo Lagoon Conservancy. Doug, we've been touring, I think I said that right. We've been touring the Escondido Creek watercourse. Our question to you is, how does the policy and the of Escondido and their relationship to their creek, how does it affect you here on the coast?
Well, I think it directly affects us on the coast, given that the watershed for Santaleo Lagoon is 77 square miles. The majority of that being the mountain areas in Escondido. So from Lake Wolford and Lake Dixon, all that area drains into this area. So pretty much the majority of Escondido comes through this lagoon. So what happens there definitely affects us.
We hear about the expansion of the HARF facility, tertiary, secondary. I mean, there's all these words. What does that actually mean in terms of releases into the creek and eventually into this lagoon?
Well, what happened is the city of Escondido was put on notice. The Regional Water Quality Control Board had made them make some plan in order to alleviate the discharges that they've had in the past, which they've been discharging secondary sewage on big rain flows. So in their theory and their thinking, they came up with, we'll go to a tertiary treatment, water reclamation, and live stream discharge of that when high flows are occurring, and they'll discharge it right into the creek. Now, the water is safe for body contact for us humans, meaning that it's been treated. It's almost the highest level. The only step they didn't take is they didn't take that extra step to take the nutrients out. And this lagoon is listed by the Regional Water Quality Control Board and the EPA as being 303D impaired. Now, in order to dump into a system like this, any type of discharge that will have an impact, especially being listed for eutrophication, which is caused by nutrients, they have to do a TMDL study, which has not been completed to this date and is not even calendarized to be done. So we're being stuck with this effluent that's going to be coming down for who knows how long, and if the permit keeps getting re-upped every time it needs to be renewed, the lagoon will suffer.
So Doug, we know how things were done in the past. I mean, you're a botanist. You do this for a living, restoring and protecting habitat. What should be our missive from here on in? We know what we did in the past hasn't worked. How should we look at this from this point on?
Well, I think, this lagoon in particular, but it's the majority of lagoons in San Diego County, underwent about 40 years where we dumped raw sewage into them. This lagoon is no different. An old sewage treatment plant across the lagoon. Our nature center sits right on an old sewer treatment plant. My theory on this is, as things break now, we now have the technology to not use gravity flow, and we can pump these things up hills and mountains, and let's pull them out of the real sensitive areas where they exist today and cause most of the problems. Leaking, pipe breaks, tree branches going into pipelines. Let's get rid of them. Let's pull them out, get them up onto the roads where they can be easily accessed, because if a pipeline breaks in the lagoon, what do they have to do? They have to bring barges out, dredge it out, and that's a huge impact.
So is there a sewage outfall pipe that goes through the lagoon?
Sure, right over here, right across that vegetated area right there is the sewer outfall pipe, right across the lagoon. Anything ever happens to it, they're gonna have to bring out all the barges and dredge that whole area out. Now, granted, I don't know if they're gonna ever be able to remove that, but all the other pipelines that cross over from Solana Beach and Rancho Santa Fe, if they break.
So there's stuff that comes like horizontally, north-south across this lagoon to hit up to the sewage outfall?
Yeah, it heads over to the treatment plant and then out to the outfall.
Woo! So if it breaks, pull it out and put it someplace more environmentally sensitive.
Sure. I mean, we have roads now, and we utilize our roads for pipelines underneath them, and that's where these should be. Los Penasquitos is a good example. There was a pipeline that crossed Los Penasquitos that broke I don't know how many times. I was the biologist on site when it broke twice, and they had sewage spills across the whole lagoon. They keep having them, but now they've pulled that pipeline out and made a new pump station, and now it's on the road, and it goes around the lagoon. It doesn't go through the lagoon. So that's what we need to start doing, using our technology to be environmentally sensitive.
Okay, so where we are right now is this like netherland between the San Alejo Lagoon and the Pacific Ocean. Where we are right now is we're about to cross under Highway 101. One thing the city of Encinitas is trying to do is actually pull the road up out of the lagoon, put it up on bridges, and help restore the natural flow of Escondido Creek. This is a good thing. What's important for all of us in North County is to help bring water issues, creek issues, and ocean issues back into the light of day.
We've been working down here at the creek for about 10 years, the Cottonwood Creek Conservancy, and our long-term plan is to restore the native plants in this little creek, which Cottonwood Creek flows from inland about 2 miles at Oak Crest Park, north to Leucadia Boulevard, south about to Santa Fe Drive, and the whole watershed is contained within the city of Encinitas. And it flows down, comes out at Moonlight Beach, right here at our state park. And what we have been doing for the last 10 years is restoring the native plants that grow along the creek. There are a lot of non-native plants that have been planted here and have invaded by seeds and so forth, and we're trying to restore the creek to its natural state so that other animals and birds and so forth which are native here can thrive. A lot of the reason that we put together this Earth Day event this year is to increase our public outreach to get more people in the community aware of what we're doing down here, aware of the fact that this is a beautiful little creek right in the middle of downtown Encinitas, and to get more people to help us on a volunteer basis.
What does the Cottonwood Creek Conservancy, what role do they play in this ecosystem?
Well, the Conservancy was formed by a single person, Mary Reneker, and this was back in 1990. At that time, there was a good deal of debate as to what should be done with this property. And also at that time, the creek looked very unhealthy. There was a lot of invasion of Arunda. It really was a sad and messy looking sight. But some of the citizens felt it had potential to be a real asset to our city. And so there was a lot of debate, and when finally the owner of the property made the decision, it was to preserve the creek and riparian habitat. And the owner of this property is actually State Parks. A few feet over here was a well dug by Mr. Cousins, who lived up on the bluff. And during times of drought, which occurred quite often.
Considering that this was a desert.
Yes. The townspeople would use the Cousins well for water. That was their only source in times of drought. Most of the early pioneers had cisterns, but that takes rain. And when there wasn't rain, then they relied on Cottonwood Creek. Now, did I answer your question?
That was great. Thanks, Idalou. See, so what we're doing is this is like local citizens taking it on themselves to save native space. This is a stone's throw from downtown historic Encinitas. And so in other words, the people of Encinitas has recognized this as a major part of the history. So we're here, we're active, we're really busy. You'll see that this is one of my favorite nonprofit groups because it's actually hands-on. It's like environmental work that you can go home sweaty from and know that you've actually made like a difference. So let's go talk to some people here at the Earth Day Encinitas 2000 and see what's going on.
I think we just pretty much were driving by. We live pretty close to this area, and we saw them working. And my wife and I are both biologists. We do a lot of restoration ecology and riparian habitats, and a lot of exotic plant removal. And this is kind of a more localized community effort to do what we do professionally. So we just wanted to get involved with what the community is doing. So we came out and we just volunteer and pull weeds.
We're taking out those pesky non-natives, like this radish here. Radish is a non-native bed. But you know, the cool thing is why they came here, I don't know. You can eat them. Some parts are edible.
Let's see. Some of the more aggressive non-native species are really important to control. Like, I mean, you can see the ice plant banks all through the site, and they smother all the other vegetation. So all you get is a bank of ice plant, which does protect the bank from erosion and so forth, but it doesn't really allow other native species to utilize the habitat, and you don't get other native willows and native herbs and native shrubs coming in because the ice plant is extremely aggressive and it chokes it off. And there are a lot of other non-native plants here, like the eucalyptus around the tennis courts. Some of them, maybe because they're large and they've been here for a while, maybe some of the larger specimens should be saved, but it'd be good to remove some of the smaller ones and then shift the system more toward the cottonwood trees that used to be here. And we've been planting some cottonwoods from cuttings on the couple of the few remaining cottonwoods left in the community. And over time, cottonwoods are as large as the eucalyptus, and they're native to this riparian habitat. And the creek is named Cottonwood Creek, and there are hardly any cottonwoods.
My profession, I'm a ecologist, and I do work on restoration of riparian systems, which are river systems. And I work with exotic plants, so I wanted to get involved on a local scale. And I haven't been volunteering here that long, but my understanding is that about 5 years ago, this area was very overrun by arundo, which is also called giant cane, kind of bamboo-like thing, non-native.
This is arundo. This is an invasive non-native.
And it just basically takes over, just chokes everything out, grows really quick. It's a fire hazard, a flood hazard, and as far as we know, native wildlife doesn't seem to use it. So it's really a poor plant. So that's what they've done at Cottonwood Creek. They've been spending a lot of time and effort removing it, and it's basically gone now except for a few sprouts. With arundo controlling it, you have to keep your eye on it, so you can't just come in 1 year and remove it. You have to keep coming back.
Marguerite!
So it kind of looks like ginger, and these are the rhizome fragments, and these break off. And you can see these on the beach, and then you see the mature cane on the beach when it washes downstream. And one little piece of it will grow into this, and then when the flood comes, it spreads more of this downstream, and this plant actually does not spread by seed. It has non-viable seed in the western United States. So it all spreads vegetatively, which is why you have to start upstream and then move downstream. Because if you start downstream, stuff that's upstream will just come back downstream and reinfect your site. And small little fragments will regrow.
And so this is environmental restoration in action. What we're doing is we're removing non-natives from the Cottonwood Creek area. Mostly radishes, castor beans, arundo. And we're taking it over to a composting space to where we're composting. There's also a small earth fair going on. We're going to be planting some coastal live oaks a little bit later. But basically the intent of this event is to bring everyone down to the creek just for awareness, so people become familiarized with the Cottonwood Creek and the role it plays in our community. Got a bunch of groups here. It's very cool, very cool. It's Earth Day 2000, and we're actually working. Instead of just hauling this stuff off to the landfill, because we're trying to close the loop for all these non-natives, instead of taking them off-site, what we're doing is we're composting them here. We'll turn them over and let them recreate the dirt, because eventually, as the park kind of takes form, we might need some of this dirt that's being created underneath these piles. And everything you see here are their non-natives that have been pulled elsewhere out. So we've closed the loop. So we're going to reuse this biomass to help like repair the damage that's already been done.
But in my opinion, what remains is really, really important. I think it's important for the community, but I also think it's important for the native wildlife and the native plants. They estimate that we've already destroyed 95% of the riparian habitat down here. So it's just what's left. I think we should try to keep.
Rape and pillage. Have you ever you've heard the phrase chewed up and spit out? This is it, baby. This is it right here. This is like probably the pinnacle of our technological success. Check it out. There's nothing, no piece of the planet that we cannot destroy because we've got little babies like this. Grade and fill, search and scrape and scar, rape and pillage, and everybody's happy because, well, you don't have an ocean view here. The people who live here are going to be pissed off because I'm sure they're going to be promised an ocean view, and you're not going to have one here. But if they go up to like 3 stories, you'll have an ocean view here. But then you also get to look at all your neighbors and all their houses that look exactly like your houses, and all their kids look exactly like your kids, because it's all about homogenization, because everything needs to be the same. Biodiversity is not welcome in Southern California. Go to 7-Eleven, go to the mall, buy what you need what you have, and because you need everything, consume, consume, consume. And if the environment or nature gets in the way, get rid of it. If it doesn't fit your needs, flatten it, scrape it, fill it. Do anything you need because the American dream is a stress machine. Hello, I'm here at San Alejo Hills in the newest part of San Marcos, California, although I could be in anywhere USA. If you look behind me, you can see all the nice little paths where the ticky-tacky houses are gonna go. If you look at the size of those lots, you can see that there's going to be no room for yards. But you know what? You won't need a yard because they removed all the topsoil. What little there was, that was scraped off, and you'll be able to buy that at Home Depot for $3 a bag. We came, we saw, we conquered. Southern California Biology 101. This is our topsoil. This is all we get. This is not topsoil. Native fauna, flora live here. This is desert dry dirt. Life, not so life. As you can see, when the developers come here, grade, fill, scrape, scar, and do all that general raping and pillaging of the planet, what they do is they cut into it. As you can see, here is California wild sumac, laurel sumac to be exact, and how it's just barely holding on. This is a plant that is on the edge. If you have kids sitting at home, I want you to let them watch this programming because they'll be the ones standing in front of the bulldozer next. Because this is not good. This is not supporting life on this planet. No matter what you say, this does not support a healthy and sustainable future. All this is about profit for money boys that are dealing with the here and now, and that's it. Observations from the edge.